Hey guys, it's Nick. Welcome to another episode of T-365. I've got Guinness here with me today, and we're going to be covering the GDAP migration tool in Microsoft Lighthouse. This is a new tool available here. If you watched my previous videos, you may have seen the one on CIPP migration tool for GDAP versus the bulk migration tool for Microsoft at that point in time, which was kind of clunky. So in today's video, I wanted to show you a full demo of the tool that's available today in Lighthouse, just so you can see how that works. And then at the end, I'll give you a little comparison of the three tools just to help you make a decision on which tool to go with if you haven't started that bulk migration process already. As always, if this content's helpful, go ahead and like and subscribe. Otherwise, let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, just a quick note on timelines here before we dive in. There's two hard timelines coming early next year that you need to be aware of. The first of which is January 17th, 2023. That's when you're not going to be able to create DAP relationships anymore. I believe you should already start as best practice to create JDAP relationships for every single new customer that you're bringing on, just so that you get in that habit, and also you don't have to do rework essentially whenever you come to the time where you have to hard cut to GDAP relationships. Second timeline is March 1st of 2023. That's when you're not going to be able to leverage the bulk migration wizard to automatically convert into GDAP relationships. You'll have to do that one at a time. You'll still be able to leverage this tool to generate the links that you need in bulk, which is a really powerful feature still if you're past that timeline, but you won't be able to seamlessly transition them from DAP to GDAP without logging into each tenant and accepting the relationship manually. So just take note of that. It's a big time saver if you have a lot of customers as well too. And essentially, again, you can use the tool on either side of that time frame, but it's advantageous to go ahead and start using that today before that March 1st time frame. So diving in here, I'm in the Lighthouse dashboard, and this is a new widget which is populated, which many of you have seen if you're logging into the Lighthouse portal, but it's giving you X amount of customers that don't have a GDAP relationship here. I can click into the begin setup. And here I'll be taken into an introductory section here. I've got these other ones lit up just for curiosity, just because I've already gone through this, but you're just going to see this introduction section, which is giving you a little bit of background about the tool. And you can click on this link here, which gives all the documentation behind the tool as well too. If you need a little extra help, I find that the tool is very intuitive, so didn't need to look at that completely. But just from an overall access standpoint, you should be a global administrator within your account, have that role activated if you're using PIM in order to use this tool, or else you'll start to see many errors start to pop up here in the right-hand corner. The next thing that we're doing here, which I believe is the most powerful part of this tool, is actually getting some recommendations on the Azure AD roles and partitioning of those roles across various tiers within your own account. And so you may not agree with all of the naming conventions here. You may not want to have 5 different tiers of which you partition these roles, but you get the option to basically rename these tiers to whatever you want. So maybe you want to call these your tier 2 technicians instead of specialists or something like that. You can go ahead and do so, but Microsoft obviously pulled this type of information from reviewing or interviewing other MSPs and seeing what they had. The other cool part here is obviously that they're including a JIT only role, which is just-in-time access. And this is much like PIM, if you're familiar with PIM as well too, where you have more highly privileged roles that you don't want to give access to perpetually. So you give them to people where they can basically activate them for a specified period of time to do their work, and then they don't have access perpetually anymore. So just increasing the security there, I believe a PIM or JIT approach to GDAP is something that you should definitely incorporate, because it's just enhancing the overall security offering. But here you can unselect all the roles if you don't want them all. For us, we didn't want to have everything because we don't need an attack simulation administrator, for instance, as an example. So that would be one. Like if we wanted to adopt all these, we could just unselect it here. So you have the ability to configure those, and you can scroll down to see all the rows here. But once you're done, you can go into the next here, and it will go ahead and allow you to create GDAP templates, which is another cool part. So if you think about the customer base that you have today, or you may have in the future, there's going to be different levels of roles you may want to apply to certain subsets of customers. And so for us, these are the two main ones that we interact with, which is our license-only customers, and that's the only ones we're providing Microsoft licensing to. and our managed service customers. So our managed service customers, we need a lot more permissions to do our day-to-day work versus the license only. We need a very limited subset of that to perform the basic tasks that we're doing within these accounts. And so with that, you also have your levels of access and your tiers that may need access to these templates, but you can go in here and you can name a template, you can name it or give it a description, and then define the tiers, as in the groups of people within your organization that might need access into this particular template, or you want to have access. So for us, for our managed services offering, that might be everybody. And for our license only, that just may be our specialist or our service desk that only does a limited subset of accounts, or maybe it's only our account managers because they're the ones doing the sales activity for that. So you can select that, and you have to have at least one, obviously, to be able to create these templates. But then from there, that's when you're getting into basically populating each one of the templates with a particular security group. So you can come in here, and we've already done this. So this is why we have this SEC Lighthouse 3. That's just the name of our security group. But this, because it's JIT only, meaning just-in-time access, this format looks a little bit different, where you get to actually designate the eligibility as far as the expiration, the access duration, and the approver group as well too, from existing groups from within your own environment. So you may want to change this to something like 2 hours because you want to say, hey, I only want these guys to have these high-level roles, maybe like a global admin role for two hours at a time. And then you can include the users as well too that you want to be part of that. But this is essentially giving you that just-in-time access to provide the levels of control that you want, and have an approver group as well too that can approve those, and you have a better audit trail for that type of activity. Shifting into the other tiers here that we have, or the templates I should say, you may have a different structure here, but you may want to go ahead and add a security group here. And this is for the service desk tier that I assigned here. But again, we're just going through each one and basically creating a net new security group if you haven't already. And then for like our managed services here, where we have multiple of our tiers selected, you will be able to see that, like for just-in-time access, for instance, we're able to select from an existing security group instead of creating net new if you've already assigned or added a security group for this particular tier. So it's kind of just creating less clutter. If you think about the levels of group creation, you do have to create one at least for each of the tiers that you're using within your organization, but then you can use them again across different templates, if that makes sense. This last section here, I have the tenants grayed out just because of privacy, but essentially here, much like what we did in the last section, we're going through each of our templates and we're assigning what customers, one to many of customers we have, do we want to have as part of this template. And so that's where you're going through. And for us, we chose our license only customers to go to our license only group or template. And then we chose our managed service customers to go to our managed service template. So pretty straightforward for us, but you may have this partitioned even further for things like consulting or part-time work that's coming in, or MSSP considerations if you're working with an MSSP, or you are an MSSP, for instance, you're working with somebody else to manage the customer account. You'll notice actually over here as well too, you have the separation, and you can see what customers already have GDAP access and which ones just have the DAP relationship. After you're done, you'll get to this review settings page here, which will kind of give you a holistic summary of everything that you just configured throughout the wizard. So all of your tiers, the roles that are applicable to them, that's what you selected in the beginning. And then below that here, you have your basic configuration, which is the summary of everything that you just did. So we have our test template here, and then these are the security group names that we added as part of that. These are the tiers that are part of that group, and then these are the customer tenants that are in scope for this particular template. So again, you have the template name, the security groups, and the overall tier that they're assigned to, and then all the customers that are in scope. Once you go ahead and click on finish here, we've already done this again for certain tenants just as an example, but you will have them here. And if you're in the eligibility window, which means that you're before this March 1st date, then they'll go ahead and automatically convert into active once they finish that process. If they're outside of that eligibility window, meaning after March 1st, or you've never had a DAP relationship or have a relationship that has expired from a DAP perspective, you'll have a little link here which you can use to log in with the customer credentials to get that relationship accepted. After you're done with that wizard, if you go back into Partner Center for a customer that you had set up with one of those relationships, with one of those templates, you can go into that customer and you can go into admin relationships here. And here you can see we have this relationship with a random GUID that it created here as well. And underneath we have all of the roles that are part of that tier that we selected for this group as well. I can click in here. And on this page, I can see that security group that we assigned there as well, which includes, again, all of the roles as part of that tier. The final section here, I wanted to just show a comparison chart of the 3 tools at your disposal. Again, my last video, if you want to check it out, I did a comparison of these 2 here. But now we're introducing Lighthouse, and it has a lot of the holistic capabilities that I'd like to see as part of a migration tool. So the interface here, we have a graphical user interface for both CIPP and Lighthouse, whereas with the bulk migration tool, we're using the CLI and CSV combination to get that done. It is providing you the most flexibility, I would say, on what you want to do because you can leverage existing security groups within your own tenant versus creating net new. But otherwise, it's a pretty clunky process as far as friendliness and ease of use. Templates here, only available really in Lighthouse. You can quote unquote create templates with the bulk migration tool manually through the CSVs that you're generating, but again, not that friendly of a user experience. That's why Lighthouse is kind of the best option for that as well. Group creation, CIPP does this, but they create one group for every Azure AD role, whereas with Lighthouse, you can basically partition those out and you're creating net new groups per tier. So you can have up to 5 different groups potentially. You can create more than that. But out of the gate, if you were to use every single tier, you'd create 5 new groups versus CIPP, where again, for every single role, you could have 25 different security groups within your environment after you're done using the wizard. So a little less clutter if you use Lighthouse in certain ways with the group creation. Suggested roles, again, I think this is the main differentiator for everybody using Lighthouse is you get those partition tiers and the recommendations for those tiers that kind of mirror the inner goings or hierarchy within an MSP and what you would want to have from the partitioning standpoint. JIT PIM support is really only available in Lighthouse natively. Again, you could do this manually with the bulk migration tool if you already set up groups for PIM, but CIPP doesn't support that either. So if you want to leverage that, it's another great tool to use. And then ease of use, CIPP is really easy to use, so that's why a lot of people use that out of the gate versus the bulk migration tool. But with this new wizard, I think it's pretty intuitive as well now too, just to have that component directly within a place where you're already doing multi-tenant components. So that's everything I wanted to cover today, guys. I hope that gave you some good insights into the new GDAP migration tool from Microsoft Lighthouse. Personally, have been able to work with the Lighthouse team on this tool, and it was great to see how much effort that they put in and reached out to a lot of MSPs for feedback. So definitely something that is powerful to use not only now, but in the future as well too. When you think about potentially managing your GDAP relationships, that's something they're going to actively work on as well, which is pretty exciting. As always, if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave those below. Otherwise, like I mentioned earlier, like and subscribe if you guys want to see more content around Microsoft and the MSP space. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.